समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
We might be conflicted over whose wisdom to use for the phenomenon of history repeating itself, Karl Marx or Mark Twain. Marx said history repeats itself first as tragedy, second as farce. Twain argued that history does not repeat itself, but it often rhymes. A thoughtful look at the developments today would indicate a return to the historic crisis of 1973. You can then choose the words of Marx or Twain, I leave it to you. I would prefer Twain to Marx simply because if I risk erring, I'd rather err on the side of optimism. Just that if the turn of events today rhymes 1973, it brings no gentle, benign, romantic tunes. Its essence is a prophetic lament, though we won't call it apocalyptic just yet. That's because India has grown far stronger in the past 53 years. There is also $600 plus billion of foreign exchange reserves. Let's now lean back to 1973. Indira Gandhi swept the 1971 general election, netting 80% of all Lok Sabha seats with her allies CPI and DMK. Later that year, she defeated Pakistan in the war and Bangladesh was born. Months later, she swept even more decisively elections in 15 of the 19 states and union territories that went to the polls. The 4 where she missed out, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram and Goa, were tiny. The last 2 were in fact mere union territories yet. She was at the peak of her power and glory. She owned her party, cabinet and parliament. No Indian leader has enjoyed that kind of unchallenged sway. Narendra Modi is now close, and that's another parallel with 1973. He also just swept a couple of very important state elections. Things changed dramatically for Mrs. Gandhi. First, India ran into consecutive monsoon failures in 1972 and 73. Consecutive monsoon failures are rare, and India had already endured one such epoch in 1965 and 1966. These undermined the gains of the Green Revolutions. The latest monsoon failures undermined the gains of the Green Revolution in the still predominantly agricultural economy. Remember, in our textbooks, they used to say, Bharat ek Krishi Pradhan Desh hai. India is an agrarian country. Then in 1973 came the oil shock with the Yom Kippur Arab-Israeli war and the weaponization of oil by the Islamic West Asian powers for the first time. Oil shortages and climbing prices compounded the distress of drought, and the young people got angry. First in Gujarat, their Navnirman Andolan or rejuvenation movement wasn't politically led initially. The economic distress affected everybody: unemployment, rent, and rising prices. In this case, the spark came from the rise in mess fees in college hostels. That morphed into an anti-corruption protest against Chief Minister Chimanbhai Patel, who was called Chimanchor. Soon, student activists in Bihar, notably Lalu Prasad Yadav and Nitish Kumar, formed their own Bihar Chhatra Sangharsh Samiti and built an almighty protest, mostly against price rise and corruption. They invited Jayaprakash Narayan to lead them, who wanted the assembly dissolved and elections held. Mrs. Gandhi pushed back. She stayed firm for some time. But she was alarmed and she responded in multiple ways. First, Chimanbhai Patel was removed in Gujarat. Abdul Ghaffur in Bihar hung on through 1974 but had to go in April 1975. In the summer of 1974, Mrs. Gandhi also carried out the Pokhran 1 nuclear tests. She talked of dark conspiracy theories of foreign powers destabilizing our government, the CIA in particular. Nothing changed the mood, nothing changed the popular mood, nothing would when unemployment had peaked and inflation touched 29%, precisely 28.6% in 1974. In September of that year, It was 34.68%. 34.68%. And whoever turned back a tsunami. The weapon of mass destruction she used was on her own people. The emergency remains a permanent blot on our democracy, and it did not save her either. It was only a fair election and humiliating defeat that became her Ganga Snan in 1977. Now, check out the events over the past 18 months and look ahead. A new oil shock is upon us. With the war in West Asia, the industrial scale pullout of foreign portfolio investors, FPIs, has resulted in a 20 billion outflow in a year, net outflow. The FTI data is more or less in net zero as many Indian companies are investing overseas. These put the rupee under pressure, ironically, against a weakening dollar. The BJP erred grievously in the last UPA years by making the rupee's strength a political issue. It now has the reverse of the cricket batter's nervous 90s. It's afraid of the rupee reaching 100 to the dollar, just as the batters are scared of missing out on a century by a run or two. Can you imagine a batter at 96, how nervous the batter is? That's where the BJP is again in a reverse way. The batter wants to get to 100, the BJP doesn't want the rupee to get there. The hard fact is your currency will follow the logic of global markets and your economy's health and your competitiveness. Currency nationalism is and was always illogical. At least this we should have learned from the Chinese, who figured early enough that they benefited from keeping their currency weak. This oil shock mirrors 1973. Soon, inevitably, the government will pass the price rise to consumers, inflation will rise, unemployment will pinch even more. Harking back to the monsoon failures of 1973 is also the warning that this is an El Nino year, though we don't know how exactly this will play out. Agriculture is a way smaller element in our GDP today than in 1973, but nothing affects more people than a farm crisis. That's why watch everybody's mood, but especially the young. Some indications are there. The NEET controversy reflects this anger. Our government talks of ease of doing business, but spare a moment for the brutal unease and injustice of competing for the few jobs or job-worthy areas of education that exist between multiple levels of CATs, NEETs, JEEs, CLAT. The UPSC and its many poorer cousins, NDA, IMA, even Agniveer recruitment examinations are now QET for simple college admissions. Today's young Indian is caught hopelessly in a chakravyuh of the coaching center economy. It is vacuum cleaning the already stretched middle class finances and driving the lower middle class deep into debt. And at the end of it all, you find that some crooks have gamed the system. The exams are cancelled and you must do it all over again. Just how furious would these young Indians and their parents be? Especially when they find the government reaction blasé. We'll lock up some crooks and hold the test again. These students and their parents are resigned to this awful rinse-repeat cycle. Whether this angle is close to the fury over mess charges in Gujarat colleges or price rise in Bihar in 1973-74 is difficult to say. But just the scale of the absurd for what started out as a lark in reaction to an unguarded remark by the Chief Justice of India, the cockroach Janata Party is telling us something. Within a week, millions of young Indians have flocked to its social media handles. At this point, in fact, tens of millions, at least 2 tens of millions, spooking the government into getting its X or Twitter handle blocked. On Instagram, however, at 21 million at the time I recorded this, it was already 2.5 times the BJP's following, the following at BJP's official handle. Of course, the Prime Minister himself is far ahead with 101 million. As we said earlier, this is a different, much stronger India. Can it deal with the challenges that arise now? Inflation will definitely rise, growth will slow down, and government finances will suffer. Yet there will be some growth, and the Hormuz Strait will reopen at some point of time. The challenge for the Modi government is also lessened by the fact that today's opposition and its key leaders lack the credibility of their predecessors in 1973. They had CVs already overflowing with the record of public protests, parliamentary craft, many from freedom movement, leading trade unions and farmers' protests. Most importantly, they had been mostly untouched by power yet, barring the fleeting Sayukt Vidhayak Dal or SVD interregnum in the late 60s. They were not exposed to the they are all the same charge. It's these differences that persuade us to prefer Twain to Marx. These times rhyme with 1973. The factors we listed also give Modi government space, but space isn't unlimited, nor is it immunity. If it doesn't use the space wisely, comes clean and carries out real reform, including in our higher education, this space will vaporize. That I too am a cockroach impulse isn't merely a canary in the coal mine. Instead, to confine our choice only to Indian birds, it's like the honk of a peacock in anger.